Hello everyone, welcome. We are here in the city of Skopje, Macedonia. For those of you who watched the last video, I was asking where am I? That is where I am. You will see there's like some crazy interesting stuff like this big Alexander statue over here. Part of this Project 2014 that they did in Skopje. So we will see a little bit more as we walk around. But today we're going to talk a little bit about the new program or the changes, expansions of the program in Malta. So for those of you who've been following along, you might be aware, Malta got rid of or had their citizenship by investment program struck down recently by the EU. It was said that they were not allowed to do that, which is too bad. It was the only remaining official EU citizenship by investment program. There are some unofficial options that are potentially available, although they're somewhat difficult. And most people, there's limited options. If those are things that you're interested in, you can reach out to us and we're happy to talk to you about what might be available in certain cases. But nothing can be guaranteed in those cases because it's, just less straightforward. But for those who are interested, unfortunately, that is basically the only way to go. And so now we're talking about what is changed and what they have announced is going to come as the next wave for them in Malta, which I have some information that suggests that they may do something similar within Cyprus. So we're going to talk about that today. For those of you who are new here, welcome. Hi, I'm Michael. If you are interested in these subjects of relocating abroad, being an expat, international tax planning, Plan Bs, all these sorts of things, please hit the subscribe button for host videos every week for you so that you can check out what is the latest and greatest, all the little hacks and tricks that you wouldn't know if you weren't kind of constantly playing in the place and looking up new different options. And so, yeah, happy to help you with that if those things are of interest to you. We can see here this, look at this big Alexander the Great statue. So, let's dive in. First of all, and by the way, I will do a video specifically on Macedonia where I will talk about the taxes and the residency options and what it is like here, etc. For those who are interested, if you have not been here, it is quite a unique place, in part because they are mixing sort of a lot of old architecture from the brutalist period in kind of the 60s. Skopje was mostly knocked down by an earthquake, unfortunately, in 1963. So they rebuilt a lot of brutalist architecture under the communist regime. And then in 2014, they decided to go and do this big sort of revitalization piece, which involved putting a ton of statues. So this is kind of a city of statues that we are in. And it makes for a really interesting, unusual aesthetic from what you would see in most people's experience. So anyway, so let's talk about Malta. So as I was saying, Malta had a citizenship by investment program. It was pretty attractive. You basically paid around $1 million and you can get citizenship in an EU country in approximately 14 months. It was pretty broadly available. It was pretty straightforward. It was approved, etc. We had a bunch of clients who went through and were able to take advantage of that, which is excellent. But then fairly recently, I did a video and talked about this. They got rid of that program. The EU struck it down, said it's not permitted to sell EU values or whatever it is that they wanted to call it. So then the question is, well, what are they going to do? And so they just announced that they're going to honor the EU decision. And instead, what they're going to do is they're going to expand their citizenship by merit program. Now, citizenship by merit is very much citizenship by exception. So for those of you who are not aware, a lot of countries, not all, but a lot, have some program under which they can grant citizenship to people in exceptional circumstances based on some contribution or value to the country. So for example, I have some friends who are professional athletes who a country wanted them to play in the Olympics for them and they had to be a citizen, so they got a citizenship for that. You can famously see what has happened in UAE, where you have people like the CEOs of Etihad and Etisalat have gotten citizenship there. You have people like Kevin O'Leary, who's got a citizenship there. You have people like Pavel Durov, who've gotten citizenship in a couple places, one of being France. And so, there are a variety of different options and places where somebody can be granted citizenship in this way. Most countries have this. However, in most cases, it's fairly difficult to navigate. You usually have to have some connections. In a bunch of cases, it really becomes a question of citizenship by corruption, really, because usually what will happen is that a person, where down here in this, you can see down here in this nice river area. So you can go and you can get this through the process, but how do you present it to them? Do you have the right connections to do so? What do they qualify as this? And so it opens itself up to a lot of corruption, okay? Now, there's some question of whether something sort of indirect like that will happen with Malta. So what has Malta said? Malta said, we're gonna expand who it is that we're allowing to come in under this program. We think that's a good idea. And one of the key indicators is job creation, okay? So I actually think that job creation is an underrated way to get citizenship. And I actually have not used it myself, but I probably should. I was literally having a conversation with somebody earlier today about the subject. If you consider, one of my companies, for example, has about 22, 23 people or something like that. And, you know, so we hire them based on wherever we can, you know, find the best people, etc. But a lot of those people tend to come from certain parts of the world. And why couldn't they be from a particular country, right? We could probably narrow our search down to someplace like Poland or Romania or something like that. They're usually tech people. And as a result, potentially qualify for citizenship. Certainly this would be the case in some place like Serbia, right? We employ people in Serbia. We have lots of clients who employ people in Serbia. It's not a big deal. If you're going to employ people there anyway, why not? Like, why not take that benefit? Now, in this particular case, you're talking about Malta. And so what's the drawback? Well, there's not a deep talent pool, right? There's about 1 million people in Malta. It is not a very diverse talent pool. So great, there's perfectly wonderful people in Malta, but it's just not that many. So if you want specific specialized skills, it might be a little bit more difficult. However, it's worth inquiring. And I think in general, it's worth paying attention to, as I build my business, can I leverage something else like this? It's very common. You know, you would have people employed abroad. Why not set up an office in that place and try to leverage this more? And honestly, even if you don't do it immediately, you can potentially switch in the future, right? You can potentially go and apply in the future, etc. So this is a thing they're saying specifically they're going to place a big value on. Typically other things are contribution to art, sport, some sort of academia, scientific research, knowledge, etc. So I don't know, if you're a Nobel Prize winner, you can probably go and get citizenship in some place that is going to give you that on that basis. I know of some people who have, as I said, been in some sort of particular sports background. So for example, they might say, okay, well, this country doesn't have a strong team, and so I can come and help to build that team. And as a result, they can maybe get citizenship. So these are all options. It's not something that we work too much with. We have some people we know who do sort of help with that sort of thing. And so if you're interested, by all means, reach out to us. Happy to put you in touch. Or in cases where we know about it, we can certainly help you out. And then the other side to that is, in some of these cases, realistically, yeah, they'll have a profile for you, but really you're going to pay some money. And the money is probably going to some people in the process. Of course, it's not like a direct payment to them, but let's just be clear on how these countries work. That is just the reality. So for those who are interested, usually those costs are like 300,000 to over 1 million, depending on the country and what's going on. That's sort of a typical range that I've seen. Sometimes it's a little bit lower, sometimes it's a little higher, but somewhere in that range. If you're prepared to part with that kind of money, you can often do it. And so good, you have to be prepared to go through detailed background checks. They will typically not allow people with criminal records. They frequently ban people from various different countries. So, you know, if you're from XYZ, sometimes Americans are not permitted. Sometimes people from places like Russia, Belarus are not permitted, but it really depends case by case on the country and the situation. So I hope that helps, gives you guys a little bit of an idea of what is going on. If you have questions, as I said, put them in the comments below. Like and subscribe. If you want help, reach out to us, and I will look forward to seeing you on the next video.